I'm not sure if that works. Okay. And I'm the hearing officer for today's hearing. And at this time, I would ask Mr. Larrañaga if there are any changes to the agenda.
Hearing Officer Abear, there are no changes to the agenda.
Thank you. The case on the agenda for today is case number 225160 for a conditional use permit, Maestas Holding Company, LLC. Maestas Holding Company, LLC is the applicant, George Maestas, requests approval of a conditional use permit to allow a construction-related business. The 4.59 acre site contains a 5,612 square foot office warehouse structure and a 2,731 square foot barn storage structure. The site was previously occupied by the Monte Vista Feed and Fuel, and its zone traditional community within the Village of Agua Fria Community District overlay. And at this time, I would ask for the staff to present its case.
Thank you, Hearing Officer John Lovato with Building and Development Services. Summary. The 4.59 acre parcel contains a 5,612 square foot office warehouse building and an existing 2,731 square foot barn storage area on the property. The applicants intend to utilize the structures for their construction-related business. The business will perform construction management and electrical services for additions, alterations, installations, and repairs for existing and new structures under construction. The previous use on the property was Monte Vista Fuel and Feed, which operated for over 30 years and is no longer in operation. The hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and clients and deliveries to the proposed facility will range from 0 to 3 times per week. There are a total of 12 employees, and 2 of the employees will stay on-site during regular business hours, and 8 employees in 4 vehicles will work off-site during business hours. Review. County Building Development Services reviewed the application for compliance with the following requirements of the SLDC. Item A, Village of Agua Fria Community District Overlay. B, Sustainable Design Standards. The facility complies with the Sustainable Design Standards and has been reviewed for the following: fire protection, landscaping and buffering, setbacks, fences and walls, lighting, signage, access road design standards, utilities, water, wastewater, and water conservation, terrain management, flood prevention and flood control, solid waste. The following agencies reviewed the project. Agency review: County Fire Marshal with a conditional approval, County Utilities approval, County Public Works approval. Item D, conditional use permits. The SLDC section 4.9.6.5 approval criteria establishes the approval criteria for conditional use permits. Staff has determined the applicant proposal use satisfies the criteria as contained in the memo. Recommendation. Staff has determined that the proposed storage facility complies with the SLDC and recommends that a conditional use permit of Chapter 9.12, Table 9-12-8, Use Table, which establishes the criteria displayed as a conditional use permit and allows this use subject to the following conditions. Hearing Officer, may I enter those conditions into the record?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Staff requests that the hearing officer memorialize findings of fact and conclusions of law in a written recommendation. The Santa Fe County Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on this matter on May 18th, 2023. Thank you, hearing officer, and I stand for any questions that you may have.
Yes, Mr. Lovato, I did have a couple of questions. I believe I noted in my review that the TAC meeting was held last summer. Is that correct? I was just trying to understand why it had been such a long period before we got to the hearing point.
Hearing officer, usually, yeah, that is correct. And Usually, sometimes it takes the applicant a little bit of time to gather the materials that are required for submittal. In this case, the applicant pretty much did most of the footwork themselves, so it's probably taken them a little longer than usual. And then there were some items that needed to be adjusted with the water. They had to obtain a letter from the city of Santa Fe for sewer, and then they had to obtain a letter from the Agua Fria Water Association to access their water.
That leads me to the other question. I did notice on page 21, under the relevant issues to be addressed, it stated that the applicant will not be required to connect to the community water, and that they will, I think, also not be required to commit to the sewage system. Did those change?
Hearing officer, that is correct. They did change, as the reviews were from our county utilities. It was within the range where they needed to connect within the certain distance, and so therefore they were required to connect to those services.
Thank you. I may have one or other question. Just a minute. I'll check.
Thank you, hearing officer.
Oh, yes, this one is mostly for my elucidation. There was a reference on, it was regarding the setbacks, and I think it was on page 3 of the staff report, 2 or 3, where you referred to let's see, starting at the bottom of page 3, setbacks. And there's a reference to it meets the requirements of section 9.12.3.2, little I, 5. And I only brought those pages of the code with me today, and looking at, do you have the code there with you? The big code?
Hearing officer, I do not, but I can get that material.
Okay, well, I'm looking at page, it starts on 165 regarding the Village of Agua Fria Community District, section 9.12. And specifically, if Mr. Lovato, you'll look at page 166, there is the 9.12.3.2, which is base zoning districts. Do you have that? Are you looking at that?
Hearing officer, yes, I am looking at that.
Okay, now here was my problem. I couldn't find the little I .5 under that section. If you could just show me where that is, because it was like I just couldn't find it.
Hearing officer, I think what we're looking at is probably a typo. And that's the way at least it appears, and I think it's supposed to say point A for setbacks.
Okay, so it's supposed to say,
Instead of 10 feet, it's supposed to say 25. Yeah, you're right. I see that.
okay, so I'm just going back to the numbers because it's so cumbersome. It's really hard to follow. 9.12.3.2.A is what you're saying it should be?
Yes, point A, point I, point A, setbacks, which states that non-residential development which shall be set back a minimum of 25 feet. So I think that is just maybe a typo and a I may
Okay,
have
so-
gotten that material from the actual, sometimes the code from certain sections and overlays refers you back to the default, which is basically the SLDC requirements. And so I may have just mixed the two up. So it is 25 feet.
So the applicable part is the last little bit on page 166?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. This is, the numbering system in the code is sometimes very confusing. There was also a reference to a retention pond. And do you have an idea where that proposed retention pond would be on this property? Because I know this abuts the river.
Hearing officer, so the retention pond is behind the main structure, on the way, not in the river, but on the downhill side of the property towards the riverside,
Okay.
which would be the northern boundary, northwestern boundary.
All right. So the distance between the retention pond and the river, can make a guesstimate of how far that would be?
Hearing officer, I would say a good 200 to 300 feet.
Okay. And Mr. Lovato, I did notice on page 2 of your report that apparently the fire review indicated that there would need to be an approved water supply, which by your testimony that it would be hooking up to the Agua Fria water system, that satisfies that. Is that your understanding?
Hearing officer, I believe that is correct. And I do believe there are some fire hydrants located within the vicinity. And then the applicant has obtained a letter or an email from Officer Renee Nix from the Fire Prevention Department stating that they are okay with all design aspects after reinspection. But that is not included in the memo or exhibits.
Going back to the setbacks for just a second, it seems that on the west side of this property, question is a residence. It's a residential property. And on the east side is the Esperanza Shelter. So the way the current buildings are on that property, that satisfies the setback requirements both as to a neighbor that's a residential neighbor?
Hearing officer, that is correct. And hearing officer, I just want to note that these are existing structures that are on the property, and no proposed new structures will be required or added to this application.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much. And is the applicant here to speak on behalf of the application? Would you come and be sworn in, please?
Sorry about that. Again. Melissa Maestas, 4 Rabbit Run West, Santa Fe, 87508.
George Maestas, 4 West Rabbit Run, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87508.
do you want to make a presentation, or are you just, you're standing on your application as you've apparently amended it as far as the water service and the utility service, the sewage service?
Yes, correct.
Mr. Maestas, I did note that you have been operating this business, the electrical construction supply business, for a number of years. How many years have you operated it?
Approximately 20.
And at what site have you operated it?
Excuse me?
Where is this located?
Right now, we're located at 2859 Cerritos Road, which is at the intersection of Cerritos Road and Clark.
And as far as the traffic that you indicated that would be in the application, it would be the 4 trucks that would be going out, excuse me, daily, and that you would be having infrequent business people coming by to pay a bill, and there would also be some deliveries 2 or 3 times a week. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that what your business has been since you've operated it? Is that how it's been structured?
Yes.
On that, also, we do have a couple of administrative staff, which is 2 of us, that's there during the working hours. So we're there during the day.
Right.
Yeah,
And so
just the 2.
And so the total number is 10 or 12? 12?
There's 12, but 2 of us on site during the day. Everybody else leaves for the day.
Thank you. And Mr. Lovato's description of the proposed retention pond, is that where you are proposing to put it? Where it would be between the structures and the river, but there would still be a couple of 100 feet before the river?
Yes, that is correct. And I think it was noted on the site plan that we submitted. It is noted on there.
I don't think I could, when I was looking at it on the computer, I don't think I could tell that's what it was.
Yeah, it's got to be 300 plus to the riverbed itself.
Well, I noticed that there was no public comment, and that you had no attendance at the required public meeting. So apparently, the immediate surrounding neighborhoods, this is not controversial. And am I correct that this is the old feed store that was across from the Agua Free Elementary School?
Yes, correct.
Where that is?
Which is, I think the new name is Nye Community School, I think is what the,
Well, I can't keep track of all.
yeah,
Changing
yeah.
names. Okay. Thank you. I don't think I have any other questions. Does staff have any questions for Mr. Maestas, Ms. Maestas? No?
Yeah, the property was operated as a business prior to this for roughly 30 years. So, and we're not building any new structures. We just want to move into the existing structure.
Okay, you'll have a lot more room, I guess, than you would at the
Yeah,
old woods.
yeah.
And it's pretty
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a real nice property.
all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions for the applicant, or, no, doesn't seem to be controversial. Thank you.
Thank you, hearing officer.
Well, at this time, if there are no other questions, I think we can adjourn this hearing, and I thank you all for attending. I will deliver a written recommended decision within 15 business days. on
Hearing
this.
officer,
Yes.
I think you need to address the public comment if there's any online or
All right.
in-house.
All right, I thought I said I didn't see any public comment. Is there any?
Hearing Officer Aber, it doesn't seem like there's anyone from the public that wants to speak on the WebEx.
And you haven't, the staff hasn't received any comment?
That's correct, we haven't.
Okay. And if there's nothing else in this matter, we can adjourn this hearing. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.